How did I travel the world by the time I was 18? That's the question we're going to talk about today. First of all, welcome to one of my first videos here on this channel. I wanted to do this video for a really long time, so thank you for being here. And recently on Instagram, I've been kind of engaging with my followers and asking what kind of stories, what kind of content would you like to see from me? And one of the biggest things I have been hearing from people is tell some more stories about you traveling the world. Share some more. And so I was thinking for the last couple of days, yes, I would love to. But if I share some more, there's only one way to start, and that's all the way at the beginning. And this is what we're going to do today. I'm going to jump all the way back to the time I was 18 and tell you, how did I travel the world? Why did I travel the world? And how did I end up in La Jolla, California, one of my favorite places around the entire world? All right, let's jump right into it. So basically, to get a start to the story and kind of like paint a little picture is, imagine I'm 18, still in high school, I'm about to wrap up, and it's kind of like the final stretch of my high school time. And I was always fascinated with traveling. I was thinking, hey, I want to get out there, I want to see the world, and I had this like deep burning passion. Simultaneously, and this is like a little side story, one day I go to our big city. So I'm originally from Germany, and I grew up in this little town called Solingen, and there's another town called Düsseldorf. Pretty big, there's some shopping going on and big stores. And so I went out there with a few friends, and while I was walking down the street, I got approached by Abercrombie & Fitch. And so the worker, she was like, hey, like, what are you up to today? What are you doing? And it was a super nice conversation. Ultimately, it resulted in this amazing opportunity that I was able to model for Abercrombie & Fitch. And so while this was an absolute fantastic experience, during my time there was really like the time when I was being asked, hey, would you ever consider, modeling abroad? Would you ever like do something abroad? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. That'd be super fun. And that really sparked something. That really like set me off to like thinking, hey, you know what? What if I travel the world? What if I, as they asked me, go to Los Angeles, California, and go out there? And so again, I'm still in high school, and I'm thinking, dang, how could I start this journey? And so one of the first things I did was like literally start looking into visas. And so I looked in for an American visa, I looked for a Canadian visa, and I found out there's this thing called work and travel visa. And so basically, for those who don't know, it's like being a mini citizen. You apply for this visa, and if you get accepted, you're like a mini resident for a year. You can work, you can pay taxes, you can just live there, which is great because if you're able to work somewhere, you don't have to worry as much about money. And I was just in high school, so like money was like, oh yeah, I'm going to travel the world with like thousands of dollars. No, it was like low budget kind of situation. And so I started applying for these visas, but I don't know why I did not get accepted. And so that was like kind of like a bummer. I was like sitting there and I was applying and just didn't get through it. And so, dang, I was thinking, what could I do? And so, to be quite honest, I couldn't really come up with a smooth solution. The only other solution that I had is because Abercrombie asked me, hey, you could model for us in Los Angeles, but there were strings attached. Will we get back to in maybe this video or at a later point? However, I felt discouraged. School was getting closer to an end, and now school actually finished, and I was like, holy moly, school is ending. I have this like big dream, I have these like big ambitions. The thing is, the town where I'm originally from, love the people, love the place, and I love where I grew up. However, I also always knew that there was a certain limitation that brought it with itself, at least for the dreams and ambitions that I had. And so I knew if I'm going to stay in this town, kind of like where my life would develop, and that was not where I wanted to go. And so the only possible way was for me to leave. And so I remember this night super vividly. It was about like 2 weeks after I graduated high school, and I'm sitting in my room one night, and I'm just like, I'm kind of going crazy. I go to my mom's office, and I grab like a bunch of white paper, and I start like just taping my entire wall full of paper. And so I grabbed the Sharpie, like a little marker, and I started writing all my dreams, all my places I wanted to travel, everything. I just wrote down my entire mind on my wall. I remember my mom coming into my room the next morning. She was like, well, what are you doing? like chill out. I swear it's only on paper. And so, you know, that night I was kind of like going crazy in my room, but I looked at my wall and I was like, wow, okay, if I want to do this, I have to leave. And so the next day I went to the store, which was called Decathlon. The American version would be Big Five. It's like a store where you can buy all kinds of goods, like camping goods, backpacks, and so on and so forth. So I went back to the big city. I went straight to the backpack aisle and I bought the biggest backpack I could possibly find. And so I went back home to my mama. I said, Mama, I'm gonna travel the world. She's like, what? What are you talking about? What's going on? And so me and my parents were sitting down all night and talking about, hey, like, what are you trying to do? You don't have a visa. You don't have money. Like, you have nothing. Like, how are you going to travel the world? And to be quite honest, I didn't really have a smart answer to that. I was just like, I don't know. I'm going to figure it out. So not a very calming situation, I would say, for most parents. Especially when you just tell them, yeah, I'm just going to, dip out with 18 and no money, no visa, no nothing. But I love my parents, and they were like, hey, if someone can do it, you can do it. And they were just being the most supportive and the most epic human beings of all time. So massive shout out to my parents. They knew it was going to be a struggle, but they also believed in me, which made me believe in me myself. And so the same night I was talking with them, they were like, okay, where are you trying to go? And I was keep saying Los Angeles. The problem with Los Angeles though was, one, again, no visa. Second, there was no possible way for me at first to really get a work visa or start working on earning money. And so one of the places I looked into a lot before Los Angeles was actually Canada. And so my dad always said like, hey, Canada is going to be safe. You should go to Canada. And that's kind of like the vibe I was getting from my parents. They were freaking out, but at least they would feel somewhat comfortable if I go to Canada. And so, okay, I'm not trying to give them a full heart attack. Let's get a ticket to Canada. And so here we go. So I was talking to my dad, and he was like, okay, I'm willing to help you with your flight ticket. Like, maybe we can make this happen. And I was like, well, I much appreciate that. Let's do it. And so basically, I went to the city, bought a big backpack, talked to my parents, talked to my dad, bought a flight ticket, and 1 week later, here we go, me traveling the world. And I was out and about. So obviously, the week, following was like saying goodbye to everyone, communicating with everyone. And I was confident. I was like, oh my freaking God, I can do this. I'm the man. Like, this is going to be sick. I'm just going to travel the world and nothing can stop me. And so, I'm making my way over to the airport before traveling the world. And saying goodbye to my parents, very emotional. We're all crying, sitting on the airplane, listening to one of my favorite German rappers, Kollega. It's a song for my German homies, Wie ein Alpha, which is basically like telling, hey, if you want to go out there, you're going to become Batman to save your family. And I'm like, pumped. I'm watching out of the airport, out of the plane, and I'm seeing just how I'm getting to Canada and all the Rockies and snowy mountains, and I'm just so excited. And I get to the airport, and I am losing it. I am so terrified and so scared. I'm like, what did I do? Like, I'm having like a full mental breakdown. I'm trying to be all cool here, like, oh yeah, I'm 18, I'm trying to travel the world. But the reality of the things was, when I get to Canada, I was freaking out. Like, it was bad. And so what is the only possible way if you freak out and you're crying at the airport and you don't know what to do? You call your grandma. So I call my grandma, and you got to imagine this like super small little German lady, that is like sweet and never says any bad words, and it's just like wants the best for everyone. And so I'm like, hey grandma, I don't know what to do. She was like, listen to me. Okay. He's like, the only possible thing you can do now is get drunk. I'm like, drunk, grandma? I didn't even know, what getting drunk means. I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, you have to get drunk, make some friends, and everything is going to be fine. And I'm like, okay, probably grandma knows what she's talking about. So I went to my room that I booked, for the first week, and it's like, dang, like I guess I gotta go drunk, So I go out that night, and I end up at this like kind of like hostel and there was like a bar, and everyone was just like drinking and partying and having a good time. And so one thing leads to another, and I end up on this house party in this like skyscraper. And so, as the night continues, for all my fellows out there, and maybe the girls know this too, when you get really drunk, you're having like talks with, your friends or someone, and you get this like deep talk kind of stage where you're just like sharing life stories, and you're just like, oh man. And so this guy asked me, hey, like, what's your dream in life? And I'm like, you know what? I always wanted to live in California. And he goes, so, excuse my language, he's like, why are you being a bitch about it? And I'm like, don't call me that, bro. Give me a computer and I buy a flight ticket right now. So this guy gets up, he goes to the other room, comes back with this MacBook, and he goes, do it. And so I type in, flight ticket to LAX, and I buy my ticket, and the next morning I wake up with a massive headache, and I'm just like, oh. And I like go to my emails, check if this really happened, and yes, it did happen. I buy a flight ticket to the US. And I'm sitting there this morning, and I was like, oh. I told my parents, everything is going to be fine. I'm going to move to Canada. I'm going to get a job. Like, everything is going to be chilling. And I'm gone for less than 24 hours. And now I'm drunk and have a flight ticket to LAX. And so it's the only possible solution. I just send it. So I went to the airport, sit on a plane on my way to LA. And that was my first time getting to the US. And so what happens on here now is a complete different story. There's a lot that happened. But all I want to share for now is when I get to the US, one of the very first things that I did is ended up at Santa Monica Pier in Los Angeles. And I remember just like seeing this and seeing like one of the most beautiful sunsets in my entire life. And I just knew I was home. I couldn't describe this. I've never felt this way in my entire life before. Yeah, I mean, I'm here for like a couple minutes, I'm just got here. And I just knew deep down in my heart, I was home. And this is the story of how I got to America and how my travel started. However, I continued traveling for 3 more years with my backpack, and now I'm gone for 8 years. So you can imagine there's a lot more stories, and I would love to share a lot more. But for today, thank you. Thank you for listening. I was a little nervous, a little excited to share this story, but I appreciate if you made it this far, for listening to me, being around, and maybe having a little love with me. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.